for the most part of the population, but we have to have a job. I'm so appreciative that they choose acoustic design as the job they'd like to have, and they show up every day and they're there with a positive attitude and they work hard. And some of the people, I'm like, oh, it's not an easy job. Pulling wire in new construction homes in the hottest summer on record in Las Vegas isn't an easy job. So I'm so appreciative that people do that. And so we try to create an environment where they feel heard and seen and recognized and appreciated for their time.
Welcome to the Flywheel Effect, the podcast where ambition meets expertise in the world of luxury home services. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a small business owner, or a forward-thinking professional, this is your platform for growth, profit, and prosperity. Each episode, we dive deep into how to leverage data for smarter business decisions and share insights that help you transition from technician to visionary. Let's jump in.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Flywheel Effect. I'm your host, Brent Sonic Schmeltz, along with my partner in the biz, Matt Bernath. Matt, how you doing today?
Oh, doing amazing, man. Looking forward to this.
All right, this will be fun. Yeah, we have a great guest with us today, Chris Sterle. He is the owner and founder of Acoustic Design Systems, integrator in Las Vegas, which he founded it back in, I believe, 2003, and is now entering his 21st year as an integrator. That's an impressive feat. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing 1% better than Matt.
1% better than Matt. Well, that's hard to do because Matt is a positive, high energy guy, so I'm impressed.
Matt and I know each other pretty well. He would say that I might be 1% more energetic.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's good.
At least 1%. Yeah. It's hanging out with guys like Chris that allow me to see what energy really looks like.
I would say 1% more energetic is impressive, but when you see Matt when he's fully on, it's another level. But Chris, with that energy, I do have a question for you that I want to kick this off with.
Shoot.
Before you started ADS back in 2003, from what I read, you worked on a show on the Las Vegas Strip doing the tech side, EFX, right?
I did, yeah, EFX at the MGM. Yeah, I worked there for 18 months. It was the last job I had before I started this company.
So I think the technology was probably fascinating to go into, but really my 22, 23-year-old brain from I think we're about the same age wants to know is how were the showgirls?
They were professional.
They were professional.
Yeah.
And were the after parties as good as I would imagine they are as being a 23-year-old?
Everyone kept it very professional.
All right, good. Okay. Well, I guess it's a what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas situation, and that's just fine too. You are in Vegas now too, right? Like that's where your integrator is. How did you end up in Vegas?
The fun way to say it is I tried to get as far away from Ohio as possible, and I ran out of gas before California. I had a kind of a big fish, small pond mentality. I really wanted to know more and learn more and be more part of the world. The town I come from is amazing, Mentor, Ohio. I had an amazing family, amazing parents, Boy Scouts. Dad participated with everything we did. Parents are still married, just celebrated their 50th anniversary last year. But I just wanted more. I just wanted more, and I still feel that every single day today. I just want more out of life. So I moved out to Las Vegas to work for an integration company, a small one here, and that didn't work out. And then I've been fired from every job I've ever had, and I considered myself unemployable. So Acoustic Design was born.
That's great. You felt yourself were unemployable at, I believe, age 25. That's
23, actually. I consider myself unemployed. Yeah.
23. Okay.
I want to hear some of the stories. I want to hear some of the unemployable stories here, Chris. Tell us a little bit about what led you to feeling like you were unemployable.
It was always a matter of difference of opinion with management. I thought I should still work there, and they didn't think I should work there anymore. So
that is the PC answer. Come on, that's the PC answer. We need to go down a couple of layers.
I was a piece of shit 20-year-old, right? I did everything wrong that you could do wrong as an employee. And then when I got into like higher level jobs or started getting older or better jobs, I didn't believe in the bullshit rolls downhill mentality. I guess I really didn't have a lot of respect for authority. I didn't like the culture in the companies that I worked for and how employees were treated. And again, I just had this chip on my shoulder that I could do things better than everybody else. I was supposed to go to Ohio State University when I was 18 years old, and I thought I was smarter than the professors. I decided to go to community college, and I lasted 2 weeks because I thought that the things they were teaching us were remedial, and I thought everyone should already know this. Why am I wasting my time here? After 2 weeks of that, I decided to move to Las Vegas. It didn't work out at any job I had here. I suffered during those times. Don't get me wrong. Like, I crashed on people's couches because I was evicted from places where I lived for not paying rent. I stole food from the grocery store to eat. I didn't have any money. I don't think I was a very productive member of society. And then a month before my daughter was born, I was fired from my last job at EFX, which the guy who fired me is still a friend today. We were just actually texting the other day, and he was actually saying how proud he was of who I am now and everything, which is kind of cool. But when they fired me, I said, you guys will be the last people that ever sign a paycheck for me other than me. And I started my company. I got my business license the next week, filed my articles of incorporation the week after that, got a sales and use tax license, and just figured I could do this on my own.
You know, that experience is really interesting, especially about one of the topics we're going to cover later in this, which is about team building and your culture, right?
Yeah.
How does that experience of the way you interacted with your bosses and your perspective on the world affect how you manage, as using your term, the piece of shit 20-year-olds that you probably have to hire today?
I think that's how everyone is in life. Even when you're a child, and let's say you're a child in a broken marriage from your parents, or maybe you had an aggressive dad, or you had an absentee parent or anything like that. You kind of tell yourself, I'm going to be the opposite of that. I don't want to emulate the behavior that I don't appreciate in my life. And I think even from a young age, I think most people probably learn that and make changes in themselves, as long as they're self-aware, to be able to notice the things they want out of life. So I think we all learn that as a really early age, and I just kind of take that to gospel in my life. And when I see something that I don't believe in, I make sure that it doesn't exist anywhere around me.
That's great. So just, Chris, you are the first integrator, so small business owner that we've had on the Flywheel Effect this year. So congratulations on being number one in that regard.
So I'm the best looking integrator you've ever had on here before then.
By far. And you are also, as a result, the first Vital client we have ever had on the Flywheel Effect.
Right on. Well, thank you for having me.
No, thank you for joining us. I think your experience, and before we get into the rest of it, let's just kind of touch on Vital. Yeah, you've been with Vital for what, a year and a half-ish? 2 years?
I think a year and a half. I would say probably the last 6 months have been the most impactful from being a part of Vital, because of some major changes inside of our organization that had to take place for Vital to really start meaning something for us. Mm-hmm. I think the first year we were handcuffed a bit by a previous employee. And once those chains were released, I think that Matt can agree that we very quickly made insanely positive changes in our company and in the culture and in our financials and just business leadership in general.
That's great. I mean, was this person, it sounds like there was a person that left that may have been called a governor on your growth, it sounds like, or your excellence. So it sounds like there was a person that was an inflection point.
Absolutely, yes. It was a person that had a lot of responsibility and a lot of trust that I was trying to step away from the business of place in Southern California, and I was trying to be a bit absentee, and I put a lot of faith in people and had them report to me, and I wasn't being told as much information as I probably should have been told, but I also wasn't asking the questions that I should have been asking, and I don't think I was a good enough owner at the time to ask the right questions to make sure things were headed in the right direction. So I do not blame anybody other than myself for anything positive or negative.
I like that. I think for business owners, if you're blaming others, that's a real problem, because ultimately you have to have responsibility. And if you're pushing the shit downhill or blame downhill, you're really short circuiting your own business.
I couldn't agree with you more. I believe there's so many entrepreneurs or business owners or people who have employees that have problems in their organization, and they're like, well, if they'll just tell me the problems, I'll fix the problems. But this quote I really love is that you can't talk to the mosquito about the malaria, meaning that if the owner of the company is the one causing the problems, how do you talk to them about the problems and how to fix them unless they're willing to change?
Right. And I think that's where I'd like to talk about Matt. Is that, Matt, you've in working with Chris over this year and a half, sounds like there's been a lot of changes. What have you seen as far as how his business has grown and adapted this process?
Yeah, great question. So it's actually the Vital team that's worked closer than I have with Chris and his team and organization, but we speak weekly about all of our members, and they get high marks for making quick decisions, especially considering how large their business is. And truly, the leadership has, as Chris brought up, total ownership of the results. And that makes a huge difference. We see members who succeed, we see members that don't succeed, and the ones that do succeed take the path of Chris and Amanda, who are the leaders of the organization, and saying, look, good, bad, or otherwise, this is our responsibility. And then they buy into the changes, they make the changes, and their entire team seems to have buy-in around it. So, Chris, I think, will be better at describing exactly how that's impacted them, but for certain, we've seen a huge change, especially after this, this big transition internally for them, and really, a shift in their responsibilities, right, Chris?
Absolutely.
Cool. So one thing I really noticed is that you started your business in Las Vegas in 2003. 2003-ish to 2007 was pretty good times in Las Vegas.
Especially when you're a middle 20 age guy running a very cash flow positive business. But, but I don't remember what happened after 2007. There's a little bit of a little dark years there and everything. But those first couple of years were business. It seemed like, holy shit, why doesn't everybody do this? Running a business is really easy.
Yeah, I mean, and I think those dark years is really where my question is, right? Like
I figured, yeah.
Yeah. 2008, 2009, 10, that range, Las Vegas, everything from what I can see externally basically came to a standstill. But you survived. How did you manage that? Because I'm certain you saw a lot of your competitors not.
Yeah, I saw lots of people not. So I say prior to that, I would just say I was still a 20-something-year-old. I had no concept of business or money or responsibility. I give you an idea of what that looks like. I had 3 cars, a boat, American Express black card, a Centurion card, and no money in the bank. So super responsible 20-year-old, just flashy and showy.
Right, in Vegas.
No concept. Yeah, because in Vegas, yeah, $500 dinners every weekend. Like, it was a fun time. But it was easy then because the phone just kept ringing. Wow, dude, we couldn't have planned that better than that, right?
It was perfect.
Wow.
It rings all the fucking time. So now it won't.
So the phone just always rang. So I was just like, we're geniuses. This is the easiest thing in the world. And then 2008 comes and there's no one on the other end of the phone. Every project had dried up. Everything had stopped. I think in 2007, I think the biggest we were before the crash, I think we had 11 employees doing a little over $2 million a year. And it wasn't easy. It was managing chaos all the time. I was directly responsible for every single aspect of the company. I was angry.
Employees did you have?
I had I think I had 11 at the most before 2008. Mm-hmm. But I was involved with everything. I was the sales guy. I had a partner at the time who was taking care of the books, and we had we had a bookkeeper. I wasn't happy mostly because of me again. I didn't know how to delegate or I didn't understand how much went into being successful. I just thought because I know it and it's in my head, everyone else should know what I'm thinking. And that frustration, of course, gets out to everybody else. And I wasn't a good leader. I was terrible. I was a bad owner of a company at best. I was not a leader in any capacity whatsoever. And I was arrogant to boot. which is for no reason, with no metrics to back it up.
And so then, and Matt, you were running a business during this period too.
Yeah, I started my integration company in '06. So I had the advantage when the crash happened. I was, barely a sprout at that point, right? So we had the advantage of size, of being small. So we weren't that
not many mouths to feed.
Yeah, not many mouths to feed. Right, exactly. So we were pretty lucky in that way. Well, what Chris is describing right now is incredibly interesting because everything that he's saying describes most of the $2 million integration companies that we come across, who come into the vital circle, right? Who come to us for help. They've reached the capacity of their ability to manage people. They have more direct reports than they can handle, which makes things more challenging. So it's just really interesting. I'm loving hearing this, Chris, and being ultra vulnerable about this situation too. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and then when 2008 happened and the phone stopped ringing, it was a bit of panic. But I paid every vendor. I paid all of my guys every dollar out of my pocket. My home ended up being foreclosed on in 2011. Wow. I'm an open book. I'm not ashamed. I think that all of that makes me who I am today. And learning all of those hard lessons were very important to me. It also shaped what my company is now because it gave me the chance to create a business model in our industry that didn't exist prior to this. We are business focused, who we are now, and what we started in 2012 when the market really started to come back was a very different focus than every other integration firm. And it's what it is. I believe it's the number one thing that allowed me to scale and build a business as quickly as as I've been able to, with process and positivity and allowing me to step away to delegate and be a leader to my team, which again, that didn't happen in 2012 either. That's definitely happened more over the last couple of years, but I definitely agree with what Matt said. I do some business coaching and talk to a lot of other integration companies. And I believe if you're by yourself, you could do $500,000 in business. If you have 10 guys, you could do $2 million in business, but you can never grow past that until you can learn to delegate, find some good people, and trust in people to do some of the work. At $2 million, you're still directly touching every single thing in the business. And if you can't get that out of your head, that you aren't the most important person, then I don't think you have the capacity for scale.
Chris, I think that's going to be one of our highlighted quotes that's going to be posted. So that was great. So what specifically do you feel, systems and process are critical, but what is the piece, you use the word unique. What is the component that makes you unique as you see it compared to other integrators?
Like every other integrator, who we were prior to the crash was another custom integration company. We were waiting for the phone to ring, or we were forming relationships with custom home builders to wait for the next $200,000 project. And I believe that's what most integration companies are. What I learned during those 4 years of downtime was what do we need to do to not wait for the phone to ring? How can we build a business model that facilitates more customers, that has more built-in customers, and serving a mid-market where there's a heck of a lot more people that are still interested in technology? I think most of the integration companies focus 100% on those Uber 1%ers, big customs. And we decided that we're going to go for the luxury production market. So we started with Toll Brothers, for instance, because that was the luxury production home builder in Las Vegas. And we asked them to give us a chance on one community, not knowing anything how we were going to do it. But I figured if we could do the same thing over and over again in a neighborhood, you could write process around every single thing that you do. And if you can write process around it, then you don't have to manage it. It's just a process that's being run by itself. And you can teach people a process without having to babysit them all the time. So we asked for one community, and we kind of knocked it out of the park with this one community, and they loved us as a subcontractor because we cared so much.
Right.
That turned into an exclusive with Toll Brothers to the point where we were doing 500, 600 homes a year with them. And part of that is we're meeting with every one of their buyers. We're educating them on technology, what the best smart home features are, what to focus on in their home, how to best future-proof their home, and tailor needs to every specific homeowner. And what's great about that is, I mean, I think if you know our industry at all, a $200,000 custom home project takes 18 months to do. And we were doing $10,000, $20,000 projects a week. So it's really easy to have cash flow through the roof and making a lot of people happy really quickly, and writing process and using the same products all the time to make installations go more smoothly, to make technicians happier, it was a really scalable and manageable thing to learn that we've grown into. I mean, we'll probably do about $9 to $10 million this year with like no stress, like the least amount of stress I've ever felt in my entire life.
Yeah, what you say sounds obvious, but very few people actually recognize it as being the path to success. Is due process repeatable.
Yeah, I think people I think most people have a bit of a chip on their shoulder, or they like to brag about, look at this $500,000 project we did. And I'm like, look at my P&L.
Right.
I don't really care. Like, I'd rather be helping people and teaching people process, and having an article in a magazine talking about the success of a leadership position or how our employees are happy, other than talking about this $500,000 project we did with a bunch of shit that took 2.5 years that had 1 billion headaches involved with it.
You know, I want to circle back to one thing that you said that I want to bring up is you pointed out during the Great Recession, you reached into your pocket to make payroll, right? You leveraged your house, make payroll. It's something I'm actually really impressed by. It's something that I've had to do myself in the past, same time period, back 10, 11. I think Matt, you said you've had to do that as well. I actually think that's one of the signs of a true leader and entrepreneur. The willingness to put your own put your people's interests ahead of your own when push comes to shove, right? Like, I think
as I was saying though, like I had been homeless in a sense. I was crashing on couches. I didn't have an address. I had stolen food before. So like, and I come from a great family. My parents took care of us. We never went hungry. We never wanted for anything. Everything my parents had, they gave to us, but I was too proud to ask for help or anything else, of course. So I never felt like giving them everything or going back to zero was the big deal, because I'd already been there, and it was more uncomfortable having money than it was not having money.
Most people aren't willing to do that though for any reason, right? So I'm just giving you props.
Thank you.
It's a good attribute to know that you have.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to, Brent, if you don't mind, I want to add,
go ahead.
Dig into this a little bit, because I think it brings up something that we see fairly regularly that is a big differentiator between, folks who have, a high level of success, they're happy with their lives, versus some of those who struggle to achieve their visions or dreams or whatever. And the big difference there, I think, is comfort, right? So what I hear a little bit in what Chris was mentioning in his experience, and I think, Brent, you and I have had similar ones, is when you've experienced a level of discomfort and know that you can overcome that, you're not scared of that level of discomfort, but also you're willing to sort of lean into discomfort to reach your goals, right? Is that something that resonates with you, Chris, where you've had to kind of lean into discomfort to recognize that on the other side of that, there's some growth or some, ability to reach those goals?
100%. I love problems. I love hearing the dirt I love hearing the nasty and the biggest problem in the world. I'm not afraid to deal with anything. And I've gotten to a level of acceptance and I think personal happiness that I'm not triggered by anything negative in any way whatsoever. I just look at everything as a problem to solve, everything as a solution. And I enjoy when people bring me problems and solving them. I don't care how bad it is. I don't care how upset someone is. None of it is triggering to me. I just want to lean into those problems. And I know Matt and I are friendly outside of Vital or anything else. And I think that's one of the things why we get along so much, other than we like race cars. We're both happy to solve problems, and just our brains work in a way that the problem solving makes me happier than just living contently with no problem to solve.
Yeah. And I think that's good. I appreciate you saying that. There's something I want to unpack even further here. there are a lot of people out there who think similarly to you in that they love to solve problems, but they're stuck in those problems, right? Or
Sure.
they almost create problems to solve. So what have you found that has allowed you to make the distinction of this is a problem worth solving, or this is a problem that I've created and I need to, back up and recognize that? Have you ever recognized where you've sort of thrown a grenade in your business and said, man, I caused that problem because I'm attracted to chaos?
I was the mosquito with the malaria for a long time in my company. Even after 2012 and growing, I would say the last several, a couple before COVID, I would say maybe 2015, 16, 17, 18, I was still angry. I was still expecting so much out of people. So I could point to a couple situations where I turned my employees off completely to me by flipping out over them being 5 minutes late in the morning because my brain kind of works in this has to be this way for it to be successful. If I hear words, I think I'm a little bit on the spectrum. If I hear words out of order, I have to correct people or correct those things before my brain can move forward. And when I see the same behavior happening all the time that isn't getting corrected, I would just lose it. Not lose it, like freak out, but it's like, you guys have to be here at 7:00. We start at 7:00. And there's no benefit for doing that in any way whatsoever. And I got to a place of consistency and understanding people a little deeper to be able to stop creating the chaos in my company and understanding who people were and how to work with them and how to get the most out of them with making them very happy at the same time. And would I like everyone to be there early every single day and ready to work at 7:00? Absolutely. That sounds like a fantastic dream world that none of us are ever going to live in. But I got a bunch of people that care a lot and they've got all this positive. So that 1% or 0.1% negativity has just gone from my purview of what's important to me. And I just try to make sure the people are happy and fulfilled. And I think I get 100 times more out of them by doing that than yelling at them for something that is so minuscule. Like those little tiny minutia details aren't the biggest deal in the world. And then the consistency of that behavior over a long period of time has created a better environment for both myself and for my employees.
That's awesome.
Do you find as a result? Go ahead, Matt. You get another one?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I feel like our listeners can really identify with just the last 5 minutes, for example, of you sharing what you've shared. They've been there. I think a lot of them, whether they're running an integration company or pool company, doesn't matter what they're running. If they're running a service operation, they've been there. What was the mindset shift for you, Chris? At what point was there an inflection point? Was there a conversation? How did that shift happen for you? And how might people look around in their business for those opportunities?
I started to think I was going to have a heart attack if I continued, to be honest. I started to think, what am I even doing this for if it's not making me happy? Why don't I just and I think that the biggest problem for me was I wasn't. So fast forward to 2018, I got a place at the beach and I was spending a lot of time in Southern California, and I was complaining about things without actively participating in them and participating in the success of them. And I was just bitching without realizing that these people are in the trenches every single day. And I'm not even looking at it from a 10,000 foot view because I'm barely close enough to see it from 10,000 feet. I think for me, it was getting involved in understanding every aspect of my company, with Matt's team helping with the financial side of my company, understanding my warehouse and what we truly needed. I think it was a lot of understanding what we need as a company and what I needed personally to be fulfilled and happy. And I learned that supporting my employees and learning from them and listening to them and not being a dictator completely changed who I was. As far as I'm not the most important person in this company. I feel like I'm the last most important person in this company now. And that mind shift of I work for my employees, not the other way around, has completely transformed my mindset and the culture inside of my company.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Does that make sense? I was going to have a heart
Absolutely.
attack, so I changed.
Yeah.
So I was going to have a heart attack, so I stopped eating fast food. Like, pretty fucking simple, right?
No, I mean, I think a lot of times entrepreneurs just have the heart attack, right? Like they're
Yeah.
winning
Well,
the
I think I just shed the chip on my shoulder. Like, I think what I think Matt could probably speak to this too. Like I said, I do some business coaching. I try to help everyone in my life that I come across. And I think that I was the problem. I had a chip on my shoulder about who I was or what I wanted the world to see me as or who I wanted to present to my employees. And it wasn't even who I was. It wasn't something that was making me happy. And I think that for the most part, most entrepreneurs can't get out of their own way. And they're afraid to let the employees know how important they are to them.
That's great. I think what I'm hearing is this professional journey that you went through now we're talking essentially 15-ish years, 25 years into today. But you started from employee that kept getting fired because you were full of piss and vigor and thought you were smarter than everybody else. Not a great employee. You did well. You did whatever you did. Started a business, knocking it out of the park, still full of the piss and vinegar, but showing it off a little different way with your cars and your black card and whatever. Knew it better than everybody else, kind of just bulldozed your way through success in this rising tide of the world. Then, 08 hits. Hey, you still have that, but you buckle down and survive and make sure your employees are whole, which is a critical moment, I think, in your professional development because it made you recognize how important they were in a way that you didn't prior to that moment. And then you realized, hey, I got to figure out how to put systems in place so that this business becomes larger than myself. You're at a moment now where you own the business instead of the business owning you. That's happened through 2012. And now you've got the systems in place. You found this path of growth. You're still the dictator because that's who you are. And then you realize as you continue that path, let me add my Zen moment to this and say, I have to work for my employees instead of them working for me. And I have to guess, is your business hit another gear, taking a race car metaphor, at that moment? Is that accurate?
I think this year, with some of the things we've done and I've personally done inside of my business, has been the best transformative year as far as culture is concerned, because I have really double, triple, quadrupled down on being this more Zen version of me that only cares about other people. I'm going to get all emotional saying it because when I say things I care about, I get teary, and you should see me in a staff meeting most of the time. But I care. I have such empathy for our employees, for people in my life, for everyone. I've really just doubled down on how can I continue to be better. And I'm very good at consuming information that changes my programming, and I'm a new person from that moment on. Like when I learn something that resonates with me, from that second on, I'm a new person.
Now that commitment to your people, which is rare, right? Rare in business owners. Has that had a significant positive impact on the performance of your company?
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely, yes. What do you think it is that's lacking in others that they think they have to be the warden of the prisoners in the jail, which is one of those other things people talk about, the prisoners, the inmates own the asylum kind of thing, where you're saying, I want them to. What's the piece that made the difference for you that let you get there that's so hard for others?
I can't say why other people act the way they act. I do think for me, it was fear of not being the most important person. I have everyone in my life who knows me. Matt's known me for a while. I have a bit of self-importance feeling, but the longer this better feeling goes on, I have less of that feeling. And as I have less of that feeling, I personally am happier, and I make the people around me happier.
That's good. And I guess, separate little story, there's been this trend in the business world, led actually by a partner at KKR, Kohlberg, Kravitz, and Roberts, for those that know, basically the largest private equity fund in the world. To every business they buy now, they include in that acquisition significant employee ownership for everybody down in the company, with the expectation that every employee is going to get at least a payout worth 2 to 5 times their annual salary once KKR sells. What they have found is that by getting buy-in from the people and making them feel like owners, which I'm not sure if they have necessarily equity in your side, but you make them feel ownership in their jobs, you get better performance. They're seeing this too. Like the data shows that when you engage people at a level where they feel pride and ownership in their work, you get a better result across the board. Right?
Absolutely. I hear from I'll even hear from my managers that, hey, Matt called off work again today. We're going to write him up or suspend him. I'm like, well, has anybody talked to Matt what he might have going on in his personal life? And maybe if we support him in that, then he could be here more often. And trying to help in those leadership ways to try to help my managers understand that it doesn't have to be black and white, cut and dry in every situation. Just try to understand our people a little bit better. It's helped them as well, because it's easy to get frustrated when someone calls off or is late or whatever else, but just understanding why. Oh, I'm sorry, I tried to be here, but my kid is sick. I'm a single dad. My wife is sick. I had to do this thing. And it's like, oh yeah, cool. What if we just adjust your start time? Would that help? Oh my God, that would help tremendously, because I have so much anxiety every morning. And the fact that we care about them enough to even make those concessions for each individual goes a long way.
I imagine you don't have a lot of turnover.
We don't have a lot of turnover. It takes we always people don't really quit, and it takes a lot to get fired.
That's awesome. I think I've mentioned this on the podcast, but it's my family's philosophy, which was all car dealers growing up. My dad recognized, hey, people come to work not because they want to, because they got to pay for their family. Yeah. So let's make sure we give them a good environment and show loyalty. And as a result, he had employees that survived him, 30 plus years, that people would never quit because they knew that they're going to get treated right. That's a huge cost savings not to have turnover.
I literally say that same thing all the time, that look, we all have to have a job. We're just trying to make this the best environment for you to almost want to come to work. Because no one wants to go. No, I mean, if all of us could stay home and party and hang out and have fun every single day, that's going to be what we choose. I mean, for the most part of the population, but we have to have a job. I'm so appreciative that they choose acoustic design as the job they'd like to have, and they show up every day and they're there with a positive attitude and they work hard. And some of the people, I'm like, it's not an easy job. Pulling wire in new construction homes in the hottest summer on record in Las Vegas isn't an easy job. So I'm so appreciative that people do that. And so we try to create an environment where they feel heard and seen and recognized and appreciated for their time.
So that's a good segue into one of the other big topics I wanted to talk about. I mean, you've reached out to call it the experts. We'll call ourselves experts in Vital for some assistance and help in your business. But you've also reached out internally. You created something called the advisory board. And when people think of advisory board, they think of a bunch of gray hairs. I guess we're all getting gray.
Oh, I'm way there.
Yeah, I'm getting the lighting. It's all the lighting for me. It's all the lighting.
Yeah, this is all 2008.
Yeah, exactly. I hear you. Think of advisory boards being, gray hairs or experts. You decided to have an advisory board that's something different, right? Like something completely different. Can you describe it for us?
Sure. I had this idea at the beginning of the year. I was invited to be, I've been on a couple different advisory boards for large manufacturers, for Snap One, who's probably the biggest distributor, and whatever you want to call it in our industry. They sell parts to all of us, right? Manufacture, that's the word I was looking for. Manufacture and distribute our industry. And I was on their advisory board, and I've been invited to be on other advisory boards because they're looking for outside influence on how to make their company better. And I don't want outside influence to how to make my company better. I want my employees to tell me how to make our company better. And because I truly feel like, again, I'm not the most important. I don't feel like I'm the most important person. And I know that they all have good ideas. And I know that they have things they like and don't like about our company. And I just had this idea at the beginning of the year, what if I just start an advisory board inside of our company? Let me digress a bit. So when I started the company and when I continued to grow the company, I was the guy. I met with all the teams every single morning. I knew every single employee. I knew all their families. I knew everything. But as we continued to grow, especially with the technicians, I didn't see them all that often. I might see them in the mornings on the days that I'm at the office I might see them in the afternoons, but there'd be weeks go by without me seeing several of our employees. And I felt that when I had direct connection with them, my soul was part of the company, and I liked who we were as a company. And I think they appreciated that they had connection with the owner. So fast forward, the beginning of this year, I decided to start an advisory board and I started with just the technicians because I wanted to have connection with the people that I never had connection with anymore inside of our company. I get to see our sales staff all the time. I see the office staff all the time. I see our managers, but the technicians who are out there and really the face of our company out in the world, they don't know that much about me. And I didn't want to be the guy that's just getting rich off the employees and I'm the owner that thinks they're not working hard enough. And I don't want to be a cliche. So I had this idea to start this advisory board inside of the company. So once a month or each month, we'd select a different group of individuals and I would take them to breakfast. And it was very informal. I sent a nice formal letter to them, welcoming them to the board and giving them some guidelines and expectations. But it was really just an open forum for me to listen to them. I really wanted to hear their ideas that maybe they brought up to their manager or ideas that they personally had that didn't go anywhere. And I wanted to get their feedback of what they liked and didn't like about our company. And I wanted to affect real change. So the first group, they told me some things and I immediately came back to the office and implemented every single thing they did. I changed policies, changed the way we did. So we've changed how we do employee reviews. We've changed how we do onboarding. We've changed how we do training, all based on my employees' feedback for our company, because they think that this would be better for new people coming in because they, at one point, they were the new person coming in. And so that first group gave me some ideas, but they were unsure if I was actually going to do anything about it because it was brand new. And then the next staff meeting, I went through everything they had told me, everything we had changed in the company. So then the second group that came in, they were a little more willing to share more information because they had a bit of confidence that that the things they were saying were going to go somewhere. And then the next and the next, and it kept getting better and better. And I just think that they see that I truly care about everything they're saying. And this isn't for me. Like, I'm not doing, of course I get something personally out of it because it makes me feel good to make people feel good. But everything I've done and changed was all because of them. And I'm willing to try anything to make our company better. And everything, they all had really good ideas, like super good ideas. One people, they thought should have a specific training program. So I came back to the office and put these guys who are wiring houses every day. They're wildly valuable to us. And they have this great idea. I put them with our operations officer. I said, here, you guys sit together, schedule some appointments and write a whole new onboarding process for new employees. And now that's what we do for every new employee. And it works fantastic. So it's just, they've seen that I'm 100% committed to this, and the consistency month after month, nothing has changed as far as the consistency, but they've seen progress and positivity come from it. And I've seen positivity and progress come from them as well, because they're not just another number. They really have a voice inside of our company.
In addition to asking them for their input and getting ideas, do you also engage them on the implementation?
Absolutely. Because I always feel like, so we also did an exercise a couple of years ago. We went through every aspect of our company and wrote a process for every single thing we do. We had department meetings with every department in the company once a month, and we left those meetings with marching orders for all of the different teams to write the process for everything that they did. And then the next month meeting, we review that and then give them the next set of processes they needed to create. And I've always felt that people are a lot more willing to buy into a process if they help produce it versus me saying, this is how you do your job every day, when I'm not the one doing their job every day. And also people will kind of show off a bit and say, oh, I'm going to do this to the best of my ability, and I'm going to do this in the process and this in the process. And then you can hold them to a higher standard that they created.
Right.
You're like, you said this was important in the process, so you can start to have some accountability at that point also. And I've always felt that including everybody into the decision-making, instead of dictating to them what the decisions are going to be, it's just been much more successful than me telling everybody how to do their job when I don't know how to do their job. They're better at it than me at this point.
Yeah, accountability. It's something Matt is really focused on as well. And I think that word that you brought up is so important. And I think you're right. I think when you're dealing with people and they have some ownership, again, of their goals and being held accountable to themselves, it actually makes accountability a lot easier.
Yeah, gracious accountability. You want people to feel accountable, and you never want, if there is a problem, you never want to leave a situation without them having their self-esteem intact. So having them feel good about and holding them accountable, and they feel good, they'll usually be the ones say, yes, I should have done something different. And then you just ask for a commitment. Hey, next time something like this comes up, will you please commit to me that this will be the better outcome? And it's just such a better environment than, why didn't you do this thing that I said you're supposed to do? It's made a world of difference.
I have a question here for you, Brent, if you don't mind.
No, go in.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not trying to just yam around.
No,
It's awesome.
Chris, this is great, man. So, I think as I'm putting myself into the mind of some of our listeners, they're hearing you specifically describe how, department by department you went through and wrote procedures and, documented standards and whatnot. And I can hear some of these guys, in some of the smaller organizations thinking like, hey, Chris, that's nice. That's real nice. You were big enough where you had these teams, and that's real nice. You were big enough, you had all this bandwidth that you could do this, right? But what I want to think about is like if you were to sit back down with yourself in, say, 2012 as things started to pick back up, would you have, had you had the foresight to do this, would you have suggested to yourself back then to document processes even though you were much smaller and didn't have all these teams and extra bandwidth?
It made it, I should have done this the day I started in business and defined who I wanted to be. And even if it was me doing 100 jobs, it should be documented from day one. So I know what you're asking me. Should I have started this sooner when I didn't have the bandwidth? I think if you're not creating the bandwidth to make this important, it's literally the most important. To me, it's the most important thing you can do, because you're never going to have any freedom unless you write a process to how to do things. Plus, once you have a process, it's so much easier to hire someone when you have a very detailed job description and a process of how for them to do their job coming into the organization. You have an easily transactional expectation of what you're looking for from that person, and they're more fulfilled as an employee because they know exactly what you're asking them to do and a roadmap for success with it. I think too often we hire people and we give them the tiniest bit of direction because they think that we know it all. Like, let's say I hire somebody without giving them a true job description and this is how to do each of the things inside of our company, and this is the roadmap to success for you. You teach them typically 10% because I already understand it. I'm the owner, so why don't you understand it if I'm hiring you to do this job? And we're setting people up for success or for failure constantly. It's impossible to set someone up for success unless there's this is exactly what I'm asking you to do. And they say, okay, I completely understand the job and what you're asking of me. It's just, you have much more successful employees. So we had to work backwards with that as we probably had 50 employees at the time. And now we've got to define a process and then teach it to a shitload more people. And if you can get that stuff on paper early, it makes growth, I believe, so much easier, because since we've done that, it's been really successful. And now we have a full table of contents for our repository of all of our processes and procedures. And we're part of HTSA. So we go to the HTSA conference and people talk about how do you do this and how do you do that? I'm like, oh, here's my table of contents for our process repository. I'll send you the table of contents and tell me anything you're struggling with. And I've already made it easy for you. Just tell me what you want to learn, and I'll send you all of my white paper, and you can put your own header on it and change it so it has your voice or whatever. But now I just want to share this with the world and give it away for free, because it was expensive for us to do as far as a time standpoint. But literally, it's the most valuable thing inside of my company. And I'm so happy to share it with other people now, because people don't take the time. And I don't think they even know how to get started doing it, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you shared that. That's why I wanted to ask that question, because I know it wasn't easy for you guys to put those things together. It's also not easy for you to keep them updated. And I think as an audience member listening to you describe it, it almost creates this excuse for them to say, "Oh, I'm not big enough," or "I'm not there yet," or whatever the case may be. When the reality is, you describe the process of you guys creating these procedures as something that just happened, almost like it was easy, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. No, it wasn't easy. It sucked bandwidth. I wasn't there with you, but I can assume that these things were all true. And I wanted to make sure that our listeners recognize that you have to put yourself in that discomfort zone in order to be able to achieve some of the comfort that you're now enjoying. And it's unlocked your ability to change yourself as a leader, because you wouldn't have been able to unlock in that next gear if you had not done that. I may be wrong, but I have a feeling that you would not be where you are today had you not created that unlock in your business.
There's no chance whatsoever. We wouldn't have such successful employees either. But I guess I'll give you a caveat with that. It was very difficult to get started. And I will say 100% the catalyst and the reason for it across the board was Amanda Krieger, our vice president, coming in, she had a really corporate background with a lot of process and procedure and a lot of formal training and a lot of these things. So she brought a level of expertise to our company that we didn't have before. But getting started was very difficult. That just getting everyone to buy in and just start in general was very difficult. And we put a year on the timeline for writing every process in the company. And once everyone started flowing and getting going with it, we finished it in 5 months, which was unbelievable. We were like celebrating. We couldn't believe it that by, I think it was end of May, beginning of June, we're like, what else do you have? They're like, we've been kind of through everything of the entire department. We're like, well, what about this? Like, yeah, we've done that. We've talked about it. And it was just everyone, once you started getting the format and the formula of how to document it and think about it, you really saw people were really enjoying doing it, because it's like, oh shit, though, I can easily have someone help me because I could tell them this is exactly how I need you to help.
But how did you get through those first 30, 60 days of people pushing back?
I'm going to lean on Amanda again for this. She was coached to go around and help and write a format for it and say, this is the objective for each of these things. So here's where you write the objective of what you're doing. Here's the problem you're trying to solve by doing this. And here's a step-by-step of how to do all of these things. And then people started getting super creative and good with it. Now, so you started and there was just like maybe a page or two. And then you get down 2, 3, 4 months later and there's screenshots from the computer of where to click on different things and how to onboard an employee or how to handle a service ticket or how to do a thing in iPoint. People just started showing off like the level of skill and detail they were putting into it to make it really easy for the next person. But she was the one that started with the structure for us.
So to do this, I think I'm now getting to like tactics. It sounds like to do this properly, you need an internal coach or champion that is going to be on top of this every day to make sure it happens. It can't just be you tell your employees, "Hey, we're going to do this," and it comes out of the ether.
No, I think, I think that we're not on EOS, but I understand EOS pretty deeply. And when companies take on something and implement EOS into their business, they hire an implementer to come into their company to do it. There's another really great guy in our industry, Jason Sayin, who we've never worked directly with him, but I think because we were able to do this on our own, but he comes into organizations and documents process for your company. So I don't think you should be ashamed to need somebody outside of your organization to lean on to help to get started in something like this. We were just fortunate enough to have, a gangster, a superhero, to be able to champion this inside of our organization, because I don't think it's easy. And like I said, it's very difficult to get started. But once the team gets started with it and it starts seeing some success from it, everyone buys in on it pretty quickly. But at the beginning, you're going to have the naysay. It's like going to the gym, right? Who wants to go to the gym the first day? It's so friggin' hard. But then 2, 3 months down the road, you start seeing success from it. It's motivating to continue to follow down that path and stay consistent with it.
So this happened back in 11, 12, a full 10, 12 years before you started the advisory board, but did set the cultural expectations of engagement in the company.
Well, I would say we didn't do the process bit of it till 18 maybe.
Okay, so
17, 18, 19,
more recent.
somewhere in there. Yeah.
Got it. So the recent, and then so at that point is when.
Real quick, 2012, when we came out of the recession, I think I had 3 employees at the time.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, you cut back as everybody should, which is good. And then just growth, bit of a rocket ship since, which sounds great. So that's 12. 18, you put these processes in, which is your true biggest push into having engagement and contribution and ownership by your employees, it sounds like.
Correct. Exactly.
Right. And now, call it 5-6 years later, you go through COVID, which is a very short period of bad and a little longer period of really good. And now you've started this advisory board, which in some ways formalizes ongoing cultural engagement by employees at all levels to the success of the business. A Toyota Kaizen method kind of stuff, right? I don't, if you're, for those that are not familiar, in Toyota on the factory floor, any employee has the ability to stop the line anytime they think something needs to be changed or improved. Little cord, big cord, you pull it, sings a little chime, Japanese chime, you hear. And it drives true engagement at every level of the business. That sounds like what your advisory board is driving on your side. Anybody can make a suggestion, and it sounds like you implement almost all of them, to at least experimentally.
Yes, but it also gives me the platform to temper their feelings about things. So if they don't understand something or they're upset about a policy or procedure, I get to, in a very informal, comfortable situation, explain why something that's been bugging them matters larger than outside of them. And you get a buy-in from them on something they were maybe frustrated with. When they understand the why behind your doing something, they're bought into it even stronger because, that makes sense. And all of that maybe negativity or animosity about something that's been plaguing them turns into a big positive.
Do you have an example of that you can share?
On my head, I would wish that I could bring up some notes and look up something. But in the interest of time, I can't think of something specific off the top of my head.
Okay, but go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I think this is great, Chris, especially just in light of a lot of the conversations we've had recently here on the podcast and with some of our members. But it sounds like you're finding also an outlet to be transparent with them in a way that maybe you couldn't before. And I think we recognize sometimes in a hard way as leaders is that in the absence of transparency, they come up with their own stories, right? About what's true. And when you can, as a leader, engage, whether it's you as an owner or the different levels of your leadership team, if you can engage in a way where you're transparent about what's happening in the organization, you're resetting those expectations to what's real versus what's imaginary in their minds. And what's imaginary in their minds usually doesn't paint you in a good light, right? And isn't true, I think, in most cases.
I think the biggest problem human beings have in general, not really a problem, but we have very good memories and very good imaginations. So we remember all of the bad shit that's happened, and we imagine ways that it could be way worse than that. So having that direct connection with them to tell them the truth really helps. I mean, we even in our staff meetings, we share financial data, we share different things about the company and there's my team, my management or my leadership team, they were like, I don't know that we should share this. I'm like, why not?
Right.
Like, what's the best that can happen if we share this? Like, if they're just buy-in, maybe they care, maybe they don't care, but I'd rather just share everything about us and be completely transparent so nobody can create a scenario that's not true.
How deep of financial information do you share? Are you sharing the whole P&L or not quite?
They don't have my bank account logins.
Good. Okay, good. Well,
we're not sharing the P&Ls. We're sharing the amount of jobs done, typical revenue in different months or in quarters, when we're winning, when we're losing. But just the minutia and the granular details, I don't think matter as much as the big picture of what we're doing as a company and how each department is doing as a company. And we've gotten to the point where people were asking them what other data they want. And the guys now are asking, we'd like to know how profitable our jobs are or how profitable our department is, because that'll give us a metric to work off to become more profitable.
Right.
So we're getting them to a point of a profit culture where people are mindful of the profitability on every single job. So we're actively working on trying to put together a profit sharing model with each of the departments of the company so they have goals to obtain and work to every month. It's been a very difficult exercise to go through to figure out a way to make it work so that everyone's happy.
Yeah.
But it's funny, Matt, this kind of little off the topic, but along these lines is Matt asked me at the end of last year, he goes, what do you want to happen for 2024? And I said, I want to make more money. He's like, well, what do you care about? I go, I care about my employees. I want to share data with them. I want them to be happier. And he's like, nothing you said there has anything to do with money. I'm like, yeah, honestly, I really don't care about money all that much. Like, as we just take care of the employees, they take care of the customers, and we should be a profitable business so long as we keep track of each of the different levers of the business.
I think, that level of transparency, I think, actually has another benefit that's underappreciated. When you're sharing some level of profitability and revenue and all these other metrics, in a downturn, when the business is either declining or suffering, which is going to happen, right? Like, at some point, the housing is cyclical. The general perception of employees is that the owner of the business is either taking advantage of them or making millions of dollars, like typically way more than they're actually making. So if you're transparent about it, and in a downturn, they see that, hey, there's not a lot of money here, they are more accepting of having all of that, some sharing of the pain. Maybe bonuses aren't going to be as good. I'm not saying not pay them, right? I think you give them a sense of of what's going wrong when it does go wrong, so that they can be part of the solution to make it better.
Well, what's fun about that is even in the advisory board, like I like cars a lot. So if I get a car or something, I'm getting a bit uncomfortable sharing that with many people because I don't feel like I'm as chip on my shoulder, braggadocious as I once was. And I talked about an advisory meeting recently about I got a new truck. I get like a new truck like every 7 to 8 years. I don't get a new truck every year or anything else. And it's what I drive to the office every day. And I just got a new Raptor, and I was talking to some of the guys in the advisory board they were busting their ass for me every single day, day in and day out. And I'm a little self-conscious of that. And they were all like, good for you, and high-fiving me. You deserve it. I'm so happy for you. You've been doing this so long, and you've built such a good company. And like that feeling of them being appreciative of me as their leader and me deserving something because I've been a good leader to them is a fantastic feeling. And you can't tell because I cry again. So
I love it. Chris, we're getting about the time here. Matt, do you have anything else you'd like to ask Chris?
No, man, this has been great, Chris. I appreciate the vulnerability and opening up and sharing all this with the audience. So far, one of my favorite pods for sure.
It's been great.
Thanks, Matt. Real quick, I want to share one other thing that I've been doing because I've listened. Do you guys know who Gary Vee is? Yeah, amazing man, right? He's great, good advice. And again, when I hear things that I think are important or that resonate with me, that's who I become the very next day. And I listened to him. One thing that he said: if you have an employee that's killing it for you every single day, take that person to a 2.5-hour dinner and learn what makes them tick and what makes them happy inside of your organization or why they care so much, and make sure you foster that for all of time, because replacing that gangster in your company is expensive and you're never going to find somebody else that cares as much as that person does. So I've also started in the last couple of months I'm starting these manager dinners where I take them out to a 2.5-hour dinner with good booze or wine or food or whatever it might be, just to really know them and understand them a little more deeply so that I can make sure that I'm supporting what they need to keep showing up and kicking ass every day.
That's awesome. That's great. I mean, I love engagement with the team. I mean, and you're going as deep as anybody else I've ever heard. So kudos to you.
I'm trying.
You're doing it.
It's in the pursuit of perfection.
I never expect perfection in my life.
Celebrating progress though.
Yeah. One last question for you, and it's part of our prior to this call, as we're doing a little pre-conversation. You mentioned that you're a big Lego guy, right? So
that's funny, yeah.
And I'd like to know, what is your current Lego project? Like, what are you putting together?
So I built I only build cars because I'm a big car guy.
Okay.
So I just finished. I'm not a big fan of like the Speed Champion series because they're too small of models. I've built all of the Creator series and Technic series, Lamborghini, Ferrari, Porsche, both Land Rovers, the Defenders. I just started building the Bugatti, which is a 3,900 piece Lego set. I just finished a couple of the Speed Champions ones that my wifey now is building them with me. So she built a roller skate to get started because she loves roller skating. So we've been at nighttime to talk and to hang out and to connect with each other. Spoiler alert, vice president of my company, Amanda Krieger, is my wifey, and she is the one that helped with the processes and everything inside of our company. She is an absolute gangster. Matt knows her. She's a gangster in every possible way. But our new way of connecting and talking and catching up is we have a room in our house and we just build Lego, and I got like a table in there. She built this roller skate, and now she's building an Orchid, and her next thing she's building a Vespa. So we have a bunch of models waiting to go, and I just finished these Speed Champions. I'm gonna start on the Bugatti because it's another really big one, and I have these boards mounted on the wall with them hanging on the wall in the room. It's pretty cool. But I'm a child.
Cool. Well, I mean, look, you're a builder, and once you get into management where you're not using your hands, you're dealing with people, you still need an outlet to build, and found it in Legos. It's pretty cool.
I cannot suggest Lego any more highly to anybody. It turns your brain off from problems, and you get to work and solve a problem. And I think there's something very special in starting and finishing something that makes our brains really happy. And that is, it's been a really fun thing for us to connect and giggle and laugh and have a good time in life together.
Lego equals dopamine. It's really cool.
Hey, real quick, one class closing comment specific to Legos. They're puzzles, right? And, I myself have a coach. I believe everybody needs one. And this week, my coach recommended eliminate the word problem and replace it with puzzle. So moving forward, everything is a puzzle, not a problem, right? Because puzzles can be solved.
I think it's an opportunity to learn.
Right, yep. Exactly. So, I encourage you and all of our listeners, we're not dealing with problems, we're dealing with puzzles. We can figure these things out.
I agree 100%, Matt.
So as our closing comment, as we always say, we don't have any advertising on the Flywheel Effect. So the only thing we ask is if you enjoyed what you heard, please give us a like, give us a follow, and share the podcast with someone who you think would find it valuable. And this is Brent Sonic Schmelz and Matt Bernath here with Chris Sterle. Thank you, Chris. And until next time, this is the Flywheel Effect.
Thank you for tuning in to the Flywheel Effect. Our journey through the intricate world of luxury home services continues to be fueled by your passion for excellence and innovation. If you found value in our conversations today, don't forget to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. More insights and resources. Visit us online at growwithvital.com. Until next time.